Anand walked slowly under the shade of the Bodhi tree, his heart heavy with feelings he could not name. The Buddha noticed him approaching, his presence serene and welcoming as always. Around him, disciples gathered, seeking solace and answers to their inner struggles. Among them sat Ananda, his face etched with the weight of countless memories. The Buddha gestured for Anand to sit beside him, the quiet grove embracing their conversation. The air was filled with the fragrance of blooming lotuses. Though Anand barely noticed, "Anand," the Buddha said gently, his voice like water flowing over stones. "Tell me what troubles your mind so deeply." Anand hesitated, gazing at the earth beneath him, scattered with leaves and fallen petals. "I live caught between memories and hopes, unable to see the life that is before me," he confessed. The Buddha listened, his attention unwavering, as the disciple's words unfolded like petals opening to reveal the flower's heart. He picked up a withered lotus from the ground, holding it carefully between his fingers. "Do you see this lotus, Anand?" the Buddha asked, his tone inviting reflection. Anand nodded slowly, unsure of the lesson the Buddha intended for him in that moment. "Once, this lotus bloomed brightly, its petals vibrant, drawing the gaze of all who passed," the Buddha said. His words carried a gentle weight, grounding Anand in the presence of the wilted flower. "But now it withers. Its petals faded and its life retreating to the earth from which it came," Buddha continued. Anand felt his thoughts stirred by the simplicity of the image, yet clarity eluded his troubled mind. "Tell me, Anand," the Buddha asked, "does the lotus mourn its past bloom or fear its eventual decay?" Anand shook his head, whispering softly, "No, Master. The lotus simply exists in whatever state it finds itself." The Buddha smiled, his compassion radiating like the sun after a passing storm. "You understand more than you realize, Anand," the Buddha said, his eyes steady and kind. "The lotus teaches us the wisdom of living fully, neither bound to its past nor grasping at its future," Buddha continued. Anand listened intently, his heart beginning to steady in the presence of the ancient tree. The disciples listened with rapt attention, visualizing the scene unfolding in the story. Maha, without hesitation, lifted the woman onto his shoulders and carried her across the river safely, the Buddha said. The wanderer reflected further, his heart stirring like embers rekindled against the realization seeking without. Belonging grows elusive within. Let your seeking rest within yourself, and you will come to know the greatest truth of interconnected being, Buddha said. These thoughts distract us from the truth that life is unfolding here. In this very breath, in this moment, Buddha said. Anand gazed at the lotus again, its faded beauty carrying a new significance within his heart. The present is a gift, Anand, one that is always with us if we choose to embrace it fully, Buddha taught. We cannot change the past, and the future remains unknown. But the present is ours to live, completely and honestly, Buddha said. Master, Ananda said, I see now that my memories are like the woman carried by Maha. Burdens I have not released. The Buddha nodded, acknowledging the insight that had taken root in Ananda's heart through the power of the parable. Anand looked carefully at the grove, noticing the gentle sway of leaves in the breeze and the faint hum of life. I see the beauty of the earth, Master, its rhythm serene and full of peace, Anand said softly. The disciples sat silently, absorbing the profound lesson and reflecting on the ways it applied to their own lives. Ananda, his heart lighter than before, felt as if the weight he had carried for so long was beginning to dissolve. When we see clearly, Anand, we find a peace that neither the past nor future can offer, Buddha explained. Anand closed his eyes and took a deep breath, his mind quiet and focused for the first time. The lotus lived brightly when it bloomed, and now it returns to the earth, where it nourishes new life, Buddha said. In both states, The lotus fulfills its purpose, bringing beauty and renewal to the world around it. Buddha continued. Bring me a pot of water, Buddha requested, his calm demeanor soothing the air charged with hidden resentments. A young villager obeyed, returning with a pot of clear water, trembling slightly under the elder's curious but watchful gaze. Anand opened his eyes, seeing the grove anew, its beauty and presence filling his heart. Life is not passing you by, Anand. It is inviting you to notice it, to live fully in its embrace, Buddha said. It is an act of choosing to live unburdened by what no longer serves us. The banyan tree stood, tall and unwavering, a witness to the timeless wisdom imparted beneath its branches. The Buddha smiled, his presence radiating peace and clarity. As the lotus rested in the grove beside them, Anand rose from his seat, his heart lighter and his gaze steady, as the Buddha's teachings guided his steps forward. Another day, another journey began as the Buddha and his disciples walked through the tranquil beauty of a forest. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of dew-laden grass and blooming flowers all around them. Birds chirped overhead, their melodies a gentle backdrop to the sounds of footsteps. As they walked, the disciples noticed a sudden movement among the trees. Catching their attention, a deer darted into view, its wide eyes filled with fear, its slender legs carrying it swiftly away. The sight startled some of the younger disciples, who murmured among themselves about the animal's abrupt appearance. The Buddha stopped, his calm gaze following the path of the fleeing deer as it disappeared into the thicket. Turning to his disciples, the Buddha gestured for them to sit under the shade of a large tree nearby. The grove seemed to welcome them, its silence embracing their gathering with a serene presence. Did you see the deer? The Buddha asked, his voice as steady as the forest around them, inviting reflection. Anand, sitting closest to the Buddha, nodded and spoke softly. Yes, Master. It fled as though chased by an unseen force. The other disciples nodded in agreement, their curiosity evident in their attentive expressions. The Buddha looked toward the thicket where the deer had vanished, his expression contemplative yet serene. The deer, startled by our presence, ran in fear from what it did not understand, the Buddha said. Such is often the way of our minds, darting from thought to thought, fleeing from fears and chasing desires, he explained. The disciples exchanged thoughtful glances, their attention drawn deeper into the Buddha's words, which resonated with their inner struggles. When the mind is caught in fear, it cannot see clearly the present moment that surrounds it, the Buddha said. Instead, it runs, like the deer, into the thicket of endless distractions, he added. The Buddha paused, allowing his words to settle like leaves drifting gently to the forest floor, creating space for reflection. Anand looked at the ground, his thoughts stirred by the metaphor, feeling a kinship with the deer's restless movements. Master, how can the mind find stillness when it is so accustomed to running? Anand asked. The Buddha smiled, his compassion shining like sunlight filtering through the leaves above them. Anand, the mind must be guided gently, like coaxing a frightened deer to remain still and trust its surroundings, he said. The disciples leaned closer, their hearts eager to grasp the wisdom that the Buddha's words carried. The Buddha gestured to the forest around them, its vibrant life teeming with countless creatures, each existing fully in the moment. The forest does not rush, nor does it cling. It simply is, and in its being, life flourishes, the Buddha said. When we let go of our need to flee or chase, we find ourselves within the present, he continued. The deer, though swift and graceful, exhausts itself by running without pause, missing the safety that surrounds it, the Buddha said. Anand closed his eyes, listening to the rustling leaves, the chirping birds, and the faint hum of insects. To be still is not to deny the movement of life, but to embrace its flow with clarity, Buddha explained. The disciples nodded, their understanding deepening as they connected the lesson to their own restless minds and fleeting thoughts. Master, Anand asked, what is it that we fear? And why does our fear drive us away from the present? The Buddha met Anand's gaze. His eyes filled with compassion for the disciples' honest inquiry. Fear often arises from our attachment to what we cannot control, be it the past, the future, or even the unknown, Buddha said. When we cling to our memories or our expectations, we create walls around ourselves. Cutting off the present moment, he continued. These walls breed fear, for we cannot see beyond them, nor can we escape their confines, the Buddha added. The disciples sat quietly, the weight of the Buddha's words settling upon them like the stillness of twilight in the forest. But within the present, Anand, there is no need for walls, for the present is open, vast, and free of burden, Buddha explained. Anand breathed deeply, feeling the forest's life intertwine with his own, its rhythm calming his heart. The Buddha reached down and picked up a fallen leaf, holding it gently between his fingers as the disciples watched. This leaf has fallen, yet it does not mourn the branch it left behind, nor does it fear the earth below, Buddha said. It simply is, living its moment of descent fully, without resistance or regret, he added. Anand gazed at the leaf, its simplicity conveying the profound truth that the Buddha's words illuminated within him. Master, how can we learn to be like the leaf? To embrace life without resistance or regret? Anand asked. The Buddha placed the leaf on the ground, letting it rest where it landed. Its journey complete, we begin by observing the present as it is, without judgment, accepting its beauty and its imperfections alike, Buddha said. Through mindfulness, we anchor ourselves to the breath, the sounds, the sensations, bringing the mind home to the now, he explained. The disciples closed their eyes, their focus shifting inward, their breaths uniting with the forest's rhythm. Anand felt a sense of stillness envelop him, as though the forest had shared its wisdom through the Buddha's teachings. The Buddha's voice broke the silence, carrying a quiet strength that resonated with their inner transformations. When we stop running and start being, we find that life itself becomes our teacher. Ever present and ever kind, Buddha said. The deer remained hidden in the thicket, but Anand no longer felt its absence as a loss or a mystery. He smiled, knowing that the lesson was not in finding the deer but in understanding the meaning of its flight. The forest, the disciples, and the Buddha all existed in harmony, the present moment unfolding like petals in bloom. Anand bowed deeply to the Buddha, his gratitude a silent offering to the wisdom that had illuminated his path forward. The disciples rose, their hearts lighter, their steps guided by the clarity that the Buddha's teachings had bestowed upon them. Together, they continued their journey, the forest embracing their presence as they walked into the unknown. Another day, another evening found the Buddha and his disciples seated together as the sun dipped below the horizon. The sky blazed with hues of orange and gold, casting a serene glow over the monastery courtyard. Lamps were lit, their gentle flames flickering in the quiet breeze that carried the scent of jasmine. The Buddha sat in meditation, his presence radiating peace, as the disciples gathered close to listen to his evening teachings. Anand observed the flames, his thoughts drifting to their fragility and yet their enduring light against the darkness. He turned to the Buddha, his voice curious yet reflective as he spoke. Master, Anand asked, what can these flames teach us about living fully, even as they slowly consume themselves into the night? The Buddha opened his eyes, his gaze soft yet deeply present, meeting the disciples' earnest inquiry with compassion. Anand, he said gently, the flame's lesson is one of simplicity, yet its wisdom is vast for those who observe closely. The Buddha raised a lamp and held it before the disciples, the flame steady in its glow, untouched by hesitation. This flame burns brightly, fulfilling its purpose without mourning the oil it has lost or fearing what remains to be consumed, Buddha explained. Anand leaned forward, his attention fixed on the flame as its light flickered in the breeze. The flame shines in the present moment, embracing its existence fully, bringing warmth and light without distraction or regret, Buddha continued. The disciples watched the flame, its dance simple yet profound, carrying the wisdom their master sought to share. Life is not measured by its length, but by the brilliance with which it is lived each moment, Buddha said. Anand's heart stirred with understanding, yet he sought clarity in the teachings that unfolded like petals blooming in twilight. Master, Anand asked, how can we live like the flame, unwavering in the present, unburdened by the past or future? The Buddha placed the lamp down gently, its flame flickering but steadfast. As he addressed Anand's question, we must learn to let go, Anand, of our attachment to what has passed and what is yet to come, Buddha said. Each moment offers us the chance to shine brightly, to bring light and warmth to the world around us, he explained. The disciples nodded, their attention fully immersed in the Buddha's words that resonated deeply within their hearts. The flame does not hesitate, nor does it waver in its purpose, for it simply embraces its being as it is, Buddha said. When we live in the present, we too become like the flame, bright, unwavering, and at peace within ourselves, he added. Anand closed his eyes, feeling the truth of the Buddha's teachings settle into his heart. The Buddha gestured toward the courtyard, its lamps casting gentle light upon the surrounding gardens, illuminating paths of reflection and understanding. Each flame burns with its own light, yet together they create a radiance that dispels the darkness around them, Buddha said. So too do our lives, when lived fully, bring clarity and unity to the world, he added. The disciples sat in silence, their breaths uniting in the rhythm of the evening, their hearts open to the wisdom unfolding. Anand spoke again, his voice steady yet searching. Master, what happens when the flame fades, and the light it brought is no more? The Buddha smiled, his expression serene as he held another lamp and lit its wick. The flame may fade, but its light remains in the hearts it touched, the paths it illuminated, Buddha explained. Though the wick is consumed, its purpose is fulfilled, and in that fulfillment lies its eternal legacy, he continued. Anand felt his heart stir with understanding, the heaviness of his questions giving way to clarity and peace. The flame does not resist its fading, for it knows that each moment it burns is a gift to the present, Buddha said. And so, Anand, we too must live each moment fully, bringing light without fear of when it may fade, he added. The disciples bowed deeply, their gratitude unspoken yet radiating through their presence. Anand observed the lamps again, their simplicity profound in its message, carrying a truth that resonated deeply within him. The Buddha's voice carried gently through the evening air, his words like the flame's light dispelling the darkness of doubt. Live fully, Anand, in the present, and you will find that your light touches all, even beyond your knowing, Buddha said. The courtyard seemed to glow with an inner brilliance, its lamps reflecting the clarity and unity of the teachings shared that evening. Anand rose with the disciples, their hearts lighter, their minds centered, their steps guided by the wisdom bestowed. Together, they walked into the night, each flame burning brightly within their beings, illuminating their paths forward. Thank you for watching. Buddha's teachings are always with you. Subscribe to our channel and we will see you in the next video.